No, I don't think that they were. I think they could have handled it in a different way. I think, first of all, in a democratic society, you should be able to demonstrate. So the idea of not giving permits or not having people out there goes contrary to the democratic process. And so I think that there could have been ways they could have negotiated and did some other things with the protesters so that they would be able to let their feelings be known, at the same time maybe be a little bit more orderly. I think it was the random use of violence here and there and the running into the groups and maybe some of the acts by some of the protesters that led to some of the clashes.
Can you describe the worst day and what you saw?
The worst day for me, and I can't give you a particular date, but I know that it was during the convention itself. We went downtown. It was in the evening. We knew there was going to be some trouble. We had to be careful. Obviously, my folks didn't know what the heck I was up to. I know they would have been very angry. But we went out and we took a subway train down there, and we could see that there was a lot of tension in the air. It was also very warm. And so we got out to the downtown area, and we could see already that there were a lot of police, and generally they were milling about in groups and so on, just keeping an eye on things. And everything was very, very tense. And so we would be walking towards where there was a group, and people were making speeches and waving flags around, and they were protesting loudly. They had their horns, or sound horns, audio horns, and they were talking about that the streets belong to the people, that we should be allowed to protest, that this is wrong, that this should not be a closed convention. And it was at that point that something happened. I don't know what, because I would just see the movement of the crowd, and as it sort of came towards us, and people would say, the pigs are coming, referring to the Chicago police, we certainly turn around and start running because we didn't want to be, we thought maybe hit or beat. And so we would turn around and we would ran, and there were instances when I was very close where I could feel either the baton or the breath of a policeman just right behind me. I was really fortunate not to have gotten clubbed or hit.
Okay. In your opinion, who is right in this situation? And another question, does it matter?
Does it matter? I think that the police and the mayor may have overstepped their boundaries in wanting to have law and order. I also think, however, in retrospect, that the protesters could have handled it in a different way as well. But at the same time, there were not a lot of options for us at the time. And so when you feel like you're up against the wall and no one's listening to you or hearing you, then sometimes you go a little bit further than you might want to. So could it have been done differently? Of course. But that's in retrospect. We're looking at it in hindsight. At the time, we felt that what we were doing was important, and I'm sure that the city had their ideas too. I think that they came across a little bit heavy-handed, not just a little bit. There were reports that they came out pretty heavy-handed, and there were some people that I didn't know personally, but through friends of mine who knew who had gotten beaten bad during that time, and they may not have deserved what they had gotten. I think that there had been more communication, maybe this whole thing could have been averted.
Why did you go down to the Democratic Convention?
Well, it was. I think for me, it was a very exciting time. There was a lot going on. I just got out of high school. I was going into college. There were a lot of ideas that were rolling around. The idea of the war in Vietnam, the idea about representation, and these were things that we heard a lot about both in school and through people that we knew. And we knew that this was important. We knew that making a stand and letting people know how we felt would be somehow, would be maybe seen, and maybe something could come out of that. We didn't know what. We were hoping that maybe some changes could have been made. But, the era that I was growing up in the 60s, that was a period of a tremendous amount of change. People were just thinking about a lot of different things. They were getting rid of the old traditional beliefs of how things should be and looking for new answers in different ways. They were sort of putting off some of the ways that people thought about things, and looking to new ways of thinking, new ways of doing, new ways of being understood. We were throwing off it was a generational thing that was going on, and we thought that we were part of that.
How involved were you? Like, what actions did you take personally?
What actions I would take is that protesting, sometimes yelling out slogans, power to the people, no more war. But as far as a long-term active stand, I really didn't take a long-term active stance as others did. It was more for me. It was like I got caught in the moment of it, and I just went through it because the people that I knew and that were involved in it were there as well, and I wanted to find out about it. And so, but being out there and seeing what it was all about, and seeing some of the violence, and that is sort of I don't know, soured me a little bit to the idea of that kind of confrontation.
Do you think the protesters overreacted, or do you think the police overreacted?
I think it was both. I think the protesters, some of them were really thick into it, and they were very emotional. And I think they got a little carried away. And the police reacted with, in a way that they just wanted to get rid of any opposition. So I think they overreacted as well, and they wanted really to put it down as much as they could, getting a hold of those leaders and so on that they thought were being very vocal, and dispersing the rest of the crowd. I think we were both to blame the protesters and their overzealousness. I think what they were out there for was good. I thought their ideas of why they wanted to be out there was good. I think the means that they had carried it out weren't, wasn't the best way of protesting.
Do you regret going to the convention at all? Anyway. No. For me, it was a tremendous learning experience. I saw things over there that I couldn't have imagined, but I felt that maybe people in one time or another had gone through things like this. So I don't regret it at all. I thank God that I wasn't hurt. I thank God that I was not beat like some people were, and some were hospitalized, and some may have even died. So I don't regret it. I regret that it had to turn into such a nasty kind of an affair. That's not the democratic process. That's more of a police state tactics.
Okay, one more question. If you could go back in time, would you change anything?
Wow, that's a good question. Sure. Obviously, every time in retrospect, we, as I said before, maybe we could have done things a little bit different. Maybe some of the leaders could have done things a little bit different. In that sense, yes. However, it calls for a huge change, because while you might be able to change the way that maybe some of the people around you were thinking, there was the other side of the coin, and how the police were thinking. But if there was some way that it could all be taken back and reworked, I'm sure that things might have been different. although I can't say for sure, no one can.
During the Democratic Convention in 1968, the police brutality and protesters' extreme rhetoric made Chicago a battleground between the authorities and the counterculture. As the tension grew between the people and the police, the amount of violence began to escalate as well. Both the police and the people are responsible for what happened. One skirmish led to another, until both police and people resorted to violence. To this day, the protesters involved in the riot hold strong to their beliefs, even after 42 years.